James Randall back, news for normies number 56, I believe. And I'm going to do something different this week, so I'm going to do straight dedicate shows. So today's show is nothing but CNN. That's right, all CNN, all show. I haven't even picked articles or anything to read. We're all just going to kind of dive into whatever CNN is going to give us today together. Can you imagine? Let's see here. CNN's website's weirdly organized to me, but at least it is kind of organized. So they've got U.S., crime and justice, energy and environment, extreme weather, space and science. Huh. All right. A CNN reporter went to 2 different QAnon events. Here's what he found. Let's see what he found. All right, this is an analysis by Donnie O'Sullivan. The video is by Gabe Ramirez, but we probably won't be watching that. All right, I spent my last 2 Saturdays going to 2 very different QAnon events. For those of you who do not know, QAnon is some sort of right-wing conspiracy theory, or at least that's what everybody keeps saying. I know they're very anti-pedophile, but there's like some weird tinfoil hat stuff with it. I haven't dug into it too much because I don't really know a lot about it and don't care. One in Los Angeles was a march through Hollywood that portrayed itself as an anti-pedophilia protest. Its organizers were careful not to explicitly embrace the QAnon conspiracy theory, even as they implicitly signaled they support it and repeated its disinformation. Much like what President Donald Trump did during an NBC town hall last week. Of course. We couldn't even get a paragraph into this without hearing about Trump. I suspect we're going to get a lot of that today from CNN. The other event, QCon Live, took place in a conference room at a resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was a meeting of some of QAnon's most passionate peddlers, but it could have easily been mistaken for a grassroots meeting to help re-elect the president. What both showed is that for many of its supporters, QAnon is not just a set of conspiracy theories. For them, it's a way to distract themselves from the failures of a president they see as the hero of a fight against an all-encompassing villainy, to elevate themselves by casting his critics and political opponents as those villains, and to not have to pay attention to all the U.S.'s very real problems, like COVID-19 and systemic racism. All right, well, that is a mouthful, to say the least. Do I think Trump is fighting some sort of super fight against evil, behind-the-scenes, stonecutter-type devils that prey upon children? No. No, I do not think that. Oh, man. Let's go on the article. That's a fun one. I mean, I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories, but I have to say, me personally, I'm more likely to believe that aliens are running the show behind the scenes than I am that it's some evil super group that Trump is fighting against single-handedly. A march in Hollywood. Pedophiles, you are on notice. -Q, one person signed at the event in Hollywood said. Along with other material, including a QAnon symbol, the sign featured a picture of Trump heroically pointing with the words, "And I mean you, Hollywood," added underneath. Then there was a hashtag, Save the Children. Save the Children is a respected humanitarian organization that has been around for more than 100 years. You know what? When they're pointing at Hollywood and you see all of the times that this has actually happened in Hollywood, then you kind of have to, you kind of have to lay off the conspiracy talk a little bit there, because that's a real thing that's happened. How many articles and stories have come out about this? From oh gosh, what's that guy's name? Corey Feldman came out and said something about it, I believe. We saw what Weinstein was doing. There was a story about Bryan Singer and young boys. I mean, this has been a thing for a while. I'm personally glad to see anybody call it out on any level. You might have seen over the past few months friends or family on social media sharing posts with the hashtag Save the Children or Save Our Children. If you have, it's possible your loved ones have unwittingly shared QAnon disinformation. QAnon followers have hijacked and bastardized the name Save the Children as a way to spread baseless conspiracy theories about prominent Democrats, including former Vice President Joe Biden. Children need to be saved, QAnon followers believe, from a cabal of evil Democrats. It is essentially the same conspiracy theory that was pushed as part of Pizzagate in 2016, which falsely alleged a Washington, D.C. pizza shop was at the center of a child sex trafficking ring. Ha, creepy. Edgar Madison Welch was sentenced to 4 years in prison in 2017 after he showed up to the pizzeria and fired 3 shots with an AR-15. He claimed he was attempting to find and rescue child sex slaves that he believed were being held at the restaurant. Woof. What a whack job. How, if you're going in to rescue children, how is firing Rambo style into a closet going to accomplish this? Okay. After Welch found no evidence of child sex trafficking at the restaurant, he surrendered. The Save the Children charity has nothing to do with this. It has publicly sought to distance itself from all of it. Other child protection organizations have said these conspiracy theories are creating dangerous distractions from the real issue of child exploitation. 100 or so people gathered on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood 2 Saturdays ago chanting Save Our Children. Interesting. You know, I wonder where they get all this information. That, you know, like who blew the whistle on this pizza thing? Like, who decided that particular pizza place is the one doing the bad? This is weird to me. Okay. It goes on to say that most people they spoke to were ardent Trump supporters. When I told people I work for CNN, the response often included some kind of Trump attack like fake news. Oh, man. Several marchers asked me a very good question. What's wrong with wanting to save children? Of course, the answer is absolutely nothing. Child exploitation is real, though the reality of it is very different from the narrative promoted by QAnon and abhorrent. Also abhorrent, though, is how QAnon is exploiting people's genuine concerns about their issue to peddle a false narrative. Yeah, and that's kind of what everybody's doing to each other in today's modern America. Everyone is kind of pushing, you know, this almost outside of the issue talking point, and then they make it to where you are now anti this or that talking point. Like in this example, they're saying, oh, well, what's wrong with wanting to save the children? Yeah, well, QAnon is not about saving children, okay? So now if you say that you don't like QAnon, then they're like, well, what, you don't want to save kids? I mean, like, that kind of argument is so stupid. It's like these people that are like, oh, if you don't say this thing, then you're definitely racist. And it's like, what are you talking about? That thing has nothing to do with racism. Like, what do you mean? It's a way to castigate your opponents and basically discredit them. And so, I mean, we're all familiar with this. We've all argued with people before and had them throw false narratives at us and make false equivalencies. And, oh, you don't understand. If you didn't say this, you clearly mean this. And, you know, that's another example of this. So, the Arizona meeting was different. At one point during QCon, the Arizona people actually embraced it, apparently. At one point during QCon Live on Saturday, a pair of presenters went on a long diatribe against people who wear masks to prevent the spread of COVID. It's a way to control people and a symbol of submission, they argued. It was an example of how the community of QAnon believers has come to embrace many other seemingly unrelated conspiracy theories, and of how willing those believers are to see everything as a sinister move by the cabal that must be fought against, inventing an imaginary threat and ignoring the very real virus that has already killed more than 200,000 in the U.S. It also showed just how strong the pull of groupthink can be among the conspiracy theorists. As the presenters spoke, I looked around the room and noted that, as was often the case on Saturday, I was one of the only people in a room of roughly 100 who was wearing a mask. I felt eyes on me, realizing the same thing, and against my better judgment, I briefly pulled my mask down, hoping it would stop the people on stage from singling me out. Very courageous reporting there. Now, I will say this about the conservative side, the right wing, if you will. They are about as anti-mask. It's unbelievable how anti-mask they are. I personally hate masks, of course. Do I go out and wear one because it's part of the rules? Yeah. Do I think it's necessarily necessary? Not really. Not really. But I think it's a small sacrifice to make until we get some more information on what we're dealing with here, basically. But, you know, excuse me. Everything's political nowadays, including whether you're wearing a mask to help people or not. But the right side of it definitely doesn't want you to wear it. They see it as like this journalist has said, as a symbol of oppression. Like you're forcing me against my will to do something. And I shouldn't be forced to wear a mask or whatever. And, you know, there's a point to be made about that when it comes to this country and our rights and, you know, how far do our rights actually go? Are there times when we're not defending them when we should be? I think the jury is out on this one. I think a lot of people will tell you that definitely this is too much because the pandemic is very dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, at the same time, we've been fed disinformation since, March or April about this entire situation. So, you know, at this point, what are you going to do? All right. So Speakers at the event, some of the conspiracy theory's most ardent peddlers referenced specific posts shared by the anonymous person or people behind QAnon as if they were scripture. Some told the audience that it was necessary to re-elect the president so the QAnon prediction of the arrest of people like Hillary Clinton could finally come to fruition. QAnon at first falsely predicted Clinton's imminent arrest in 2017, and some speakers hinted at growing impatience and even perhaps skepticism about QAnon's claims and predictions. Others, though, suggest it will all fall into place after Trump's re-election. I mean, why would you continue to follow a conspiracy theory that makes predictions and the predictions don't happen? I mean, if I'm going into a cult and I'm making predictions, pardon me for yawning, guys and gals, it's been a long couple of weeks. And I'm making predictions, you would think, You would think that if they don't come true, I'm going to stop believing it. Is that just me? That can't just be me. Oh, man. Anyways. So that was U.S. Let's try crime and justice. This ought to be good. All right, Breonna Tylor, grand juror, says panel wasn't given a chance to consider homicide charges. The Breonna Tylor grand jury was not given an opportunity to consider homicide charges in the case against police officers who served a no-knock warrant at her home the night she was killed. An anonymous member of the panel said, oh, God, I hate that. An anonymous person said this. An anonymous panel member said that. An anonymous person said, like, how am I supposed to believe that that was said at all? How? Anonymous person. I'm just supposed to trust you, random journalist on the internet, because you work for CNN. But I guess we're supposed to trust that CNN bothered to vet this story. And that they actually bothered to track down the juror and, review this quote and say, did you say this? Yes. Anonymous sources. It's making it hard to get through this particular podcast. It really is. All right, the statement came shortly after a Kentucky judge ruled the grand juror may speak publicly about the case presented by Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. The grand jury did not have homicide offenses explained to them, the anonymous grand juror wrote in a statement. The grand jury never heard about those laws. Self-defense or justification was never explained either. The rare statement, grand juries are intended to be secret with some exceptions, followed the ruling of Jefferson County Circuit Court Judge Annie O'Connell and sheds further light on a case that has led to protests across the country and exemplified the ways that the war on drugs disproportionately hurts Black Americans. I agree that the war of drugs hurts Americans. Whether it disproportionately hurts Black Americans or not, it's probably borne out in statistics. You'd have to look at the amount that have been locked up, etc., incarcerated for drugs. I'm not familiar with those numbers. I do know that what happened to Breonna Tylor was a joke. I do not believe the police should have the authority in any regard to enter your house uninvited, and especially without knocking, and especially like the whole no knock, you don't have to identify yourself nonsense is just ridiculous. Let's be real. All right. The grand jury didn't agree that certain actions were justified, nor did it decide the indictment should be the only charges in the Breonna Tylor case. The grand jury was not given the opportunity to deliberate on those charges, deliberated only what was presented to them. I can't speak for other jurors, but I can help the truth be told. CNN has reached out for Cameron's office for comment. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and cut the podcast short today. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't seem to get my throat to clear up. I sound terrible. Plus, it's CNN, so I guess I'm ducking out early. I'll do the same for Fox. Maybe I'll come back and do 2 episodes today. We'll see. Hopefully I'll sound better. In the meantime, this case is going to be followed really heavily by the country, I think. Everybody's waiting for the verdict. And, I think we as a country have kind of decided to throw justice out the window in favor of justice we want that doesn't necessarily reflect, actual justice that is supposed to be impartial and delivered through our courts and such. Now everybody's, the court of public opinion is a little louder than our actual courts, and I think that's a conflict that's not going to be a good one for anyone in this country. Let's just say that. Excuse me. All right, thanks for tuning in. Rules for Normies. Sorry, a short episode today. Definitely be back tomorrow. Podcast, download, like, share, subscribe, comment. All right, I appreciate you.